Welcome on to the next episode of the Faster Beyond 50 podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about running post-knee replacement. That is one of the great questions we've got on today's Q&A episode. We're also going to be talking about how to avoid burnout, how to stop being so sore after long runs, how to fuel better, and how to deal with plantar fasciitis. My name is Brad Nadauld. I've got the coach, Lindsey, Parry. Lindsey, nice to touch base once again. How are things going?
Yeah, everything is going amazingly. Awesome 2025 so far, and looking forward to it really taking off in the second half of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Lindsey, let's dive straight into the first question. Don't forget, if you have a question you would like to submit, you can do so fairly easily. All you have to do is just click on the link that's in the description to this podcast. If you're listening on an audio player or if you're watching us on YouTube, it is there. Just have a look, click on it, and submit your question. There's multiple ways you can submit it. You can submit it as a video question, and we do love the videos. So we filter those to the top when they do come through. So if you want to guarantee that you get your question answered, video is the way to go. You can also leave it as an audio note, like a voice note. If you're sending a WhatsApp as an example, you can do that, or you can type it out and send it as a written question, which is exactly what Karen has done. Karen is a 56-year-old runner from Melbourne in Australia, and Karen says, I've been running for over 20 years. I love the mental clarity that it brings, but I've noticed that tough runs feel even harder as I've gotten older, whether it's pushing through a long run on tired legs or tackling an interval session. I often find myself questioning whether I should push harder or back off to avoid overdoing it. Are there any mental strategies you can recommend to help me stay focused and motivated during these tough runs while still being mindful of the body's limits and avoiding overexertion? Great question from Karen. Lindsey?
Yeah, and there's a famous Disney animated movie that now the name of it is eluding me. Princess Elsa, when she sings Let It Go. That's the best advice that I can.
Frozen, Lindsey. The movie's Frozen. I was going to tell you to let it go because now everybody's singing the song and it's all your fault.
Yes, and I think that's the song that should be sung here. So there's a couple of key phrases that are in here that really give us a clue as to what's going on. And that is, pushing through the tired legs. There's just a lot of running too hard. And so this is really something that happens particularly in our 60s, but it starts a little bit in our 50s. But this is a very common theme for me for runners that are in their 60s, that they defend the line. And so it's not actually the long run that's the problem. It's the intensity of the long run that's the problem. And that in turn is having a knock-on effect into the high intensity session. So because we are defending the line and running our easy runs too hard, we struggle then to recover, and therefore our high intensity sessions become harder, and we can't actually get out of those sessions what we need. And so the solution here is really just to let it go, not worry about the pace, add in more walk breaks. So don't push through on, that's just, it's the wrong mindset. I mean, that's a good mindset on race day. It's a bad mindset on easy training days. Good mindset on the hard training days, unless it's pain that you're pushing through. But on your easy days, it's the wrong mindset. Don't push through. Take a walk break. Take an actual rest before you carry on at an even easier pace. We want to get through long runs feeling a little bit tired, but feeling like we could still carry on going for a long period of time. And so in this instance, I really feel like it's not a very big fix. I would look at the overall week too, just make sure there aren't too many sessions in the week and that there is enough recovery time through the week. But the main thing here is actually treating the acute issue, which is just pushing yourself too hard on your easy runs. Run slower on those easy runs and you will suddenly feel better and you'll start performing much better on your race days again. As a longer term solve to helping to improve the pace there again a little bit more, strength training is probably your best longer term solution for that. But the key there is not to get into a mindset of I must run faster. That needs to be an organic, slight improvement in pace over the next 3 to 4 months while you do that strength training. but you want to maintain the intensity in the same place, which is to say very easy to hold talking pace, and mustn't drive fatigue by the end of the run.
Yeah, Lindsey, it's quite interesting when you talk about defending the line. It reminded me of the story of one of your one-on-one coaching clients, Jackie, who we've actually had on this podcast before. If you haven't listened to that episode, go back. It is really, really cool. But that was exactly what was happening to Jackie. She turned 70. Tell us that story. And often we defend that line because we don't want to get slow. We're trying to get faster, or we don't want to get slower. And defending that line is actually perpetuating the problem. And that's exactly what happened with Jackie.
Yeah, so I'd been trying to get her to slow down on her long runs for a while, and she was struggling to run under 4 hours. She just wanted one more sub 4 hour marathon. And then she asked me one day, "Oh, can I run with so-and-so? They run slower than I do." And I was like, "Yes, do it.
Please do."
So she started running with this person who was slower than her, and then started with a couple of ladies in her neighborhood, helping them to get going with running. So then she had the second, even slower run in the week. So her longer runs were slowed down. But honestly, it was after the first run. She said to me the next time we spoke, she said, "I understand what you've been trying to tell me. I can't believe how much better I've felt since Saturday after having run with my friend." And so now she runs at that pace whether her friend is there or not. And she's done 2 more races under 4 hours since we made that change. And I think she just turned 72 on Friday, 72 or 73.
So I'm going to add in 70. Yeah, that's incredible. Absolutely incredible. Karen, I hope that helps, and I hope that makes you feel better as well. Next question is from Mark. Mark lives in Dover in the UK. Lindsey, he's 62. Mark says, "I've been running consistently for years, but recently I've noticed that it takes me much longer to recover after my runs, especially the longer ones or harder efforts. Sometimes I feel sore and stiff 2 or 3 days later, which never used to happen in my 40s. Is this normal as we age? What are the best recovery strategies for runners over 50 to help reduce soreness and speed up recovery, which will obviously allow us to stay consistent in our training?"
Yeah, so look, I think there, because it's so extreme, he's probably got 3 issues: nutrition, running too fast, and isn't doing strength training. So that will be, we can't get more detail there, but I'm almost certain that all 3 of those things are at play. So typically what happens if you go into long runs like that, and you haven't been taking the right nutrition and or going in a little bit dehydrated, the muscles can't do their job that they're supposed to do properly, then you don't feel properly in the run itself, then what happens is that fatigue arrives quickly, and so you have to start rotating fewer numbers of fibers quicker, so that you can still get that run done. And so you are essentially just doing more damage, because fewer muscles, you can think when you hit the ground with that eccentric load, the fewer fibers you've got doing that, the more damage will be done to each of the individual fibers in there. It's that old story of take a small stick and it's super easy to break, but put 15 sticks and it suddenly becomes almost impossible to break. So that's part 1. Part 2 is probably going into those runs fatigued and then pushing too hard. That's why you're getting to the end of the runs exhausted, plus all that mega muscle damage that now needs repairing. And then the third one, which is again just such a common mistake with runners as they get older, is you need to do strength training. Okay, so you've got to get stronger so that your body can handle what you want it to do better. So do the strength training, and in the short term, I'd pull right back. Like maybe train for a 5K or something that only requires like an hour to an hour and a half easy runs on the weekend to give you enough of the endurance. And my guess is endurance probably isn't one of the issues that you've got, because you've done so much and pushed through for so long. So by pulling down the volume, you will allow yourself to start freshening up, but you also allow yourself to start ramping up the strength training over the next 8 to 12 weeks. And by the time you get to the end of that first cycle of 8 to 12 weeks, I suspect those long runs will start to feel much, much better. And when you do run them much slower, like 20 to 30 seconds per per kilometer/mile.
Yeah, Lindsey, Mark also didn't say how many days a week he's running too. That could also play into it. I mean, if he's running 6-7 days a week, that the lack of recovery could also be playing into it big time.
Yeah, and 100%. And it sounds like in the immediate short term, he's a real candidate for run walk. So just keep run 2 miles, walk 1 to 2 minutes type of thing, and maybe even less, 1 mile, 1 minute, 2 minute walk. And then just in terms of some recovery strategies, Brad, like as we get older, there are things we can do to help. I mean, you can take, well, firstly, I've already spoken about the nutrition, but you can also do things like creatine, collagen, L-glutamine. So these are things that will help you to recover better. If you aren't eating well, so for various reasons, some people are just too busy and whatever, too lazy to do it properly, then you can look at something like a whey protein. And then just during those long runs, as I said, make sure that you're fueling during those long runs. It sounds to me like you're going in under fueled, but that just means that in exercise, even more important to fuel properly.
Fabulous question, Mark. Thank you very much for that. Lindsey, next one. Linda got in touch. Linda is from Austin, Texas, and she said, I've been running marathons and half marathons for over 15 years, always followed a fairly straightforward fueling strategy. Recently, though, I've noticed my energy levels seem to dip faster later on in the race. I feel more fatigue at the end, and even when I've stuck to my usual gels and hydration plan, do I need to change my fueling strategy now that I'm older? Are there any specific adjustments I should make before, during, so that my energy level stays steady and I perform at my best? Do our nutrition needs change during a race as we get older? Great question, Linda. And she said, oh, by the way, I'm 58. I don't know if that makes a difference.
So, yes, I mean, there's no question that our nutritional requirements change as we race. And I think often, even though we are slowing down, I think our relative effort increases. So there's no question that there is a change in our effort, largely because we don't want to slow down. So inevitably, we actually end up maybe trying harder than we should, which costs us a little bit of time in the end. But the most important part of this equation is that we tend to be out there longer. So if it's a half marathon that you're training for, and you are 58, it's plausible that you could be out there between 15 and 20 minutes longer than you would have been when you were 50, half an hour longer than when you were 45. So, those are realistic numbers. So obviously, if you're out there longer, you obviously need more nutrition to keep up that intensity for that longer period of time. So probably a little bit of a double whammy there. And so maybe just need to take the gels fractionally closer together, and then that possibly adds one extra one towards the end. I mean, you just, again, need to sit down and work it out. And then, there's new products coming on the market all the time. And I know we like to stick to what we know, but in your 40s, a gel was a gel. You were shopping on taste, really, rather than anything else. Now in your late 50s, we've got gels that have got some electrolytes in them, some caffeine in them. We've got gels that are packaged in a way that instead of delivering 26 grams of carbohydrates per gel, you're getting in 60 or more carbohydrates per gel. So you can also get more bang for your buck. So you might not need to take gels more often or more gels. Maybe try one of these newer age gels that's just got more bang for your buck and absorbs in the gut easier, so that you can handle more. So yeah, those are the things that I would look at. But absolutely, those nutritional demands will change as we get older.
Yeah, Lindsey, I'm having a chuckle as you were talking about how sort of the technology in race nutrition has changed over the years. And I was thinking back to when my dad was running ultras, which was in the 80s, and your dad was the same. And I was thinking about some of the nutrition stuff that they used there. There were those old corn syrup gels. Those were like the first ones with no flavorants. They were horrendous, absolutely horrendous.
So the very first ones that came out didn't even have a name. It was just a packet that you bought in the pharmacy. I did my first ultra marathon on those. They were hideous. And then Leppen Ironman brought out exactly the same product with just a hint of lemon flavor in the background. So that was it. And that was, geez, I mean, we're talking there the late 90s when I did that, but then it literally rapidly started to change from that point onwards.
You get a lot of, I remember my dad ran an ultra marathon. I don't know when it was. It must have been the late 80s, early 90s. And his nutrition strategy, he took a slab of chocolate, just normal milk chocolate, and put it in. Remember how you used to have to go to the bank if you took coins in, they had to be in a plastic packet. So he would take the chocolate slab, break it up into its pieces, put it into the bag, and then he used to use a safety pin and sort of attach that to him. And his body heat would obviously melt that during the day as he ran, the longer he went. And then he would just bite a corner off of the bank bag and then just suck on the chocolate slab as he would go. And that was his nutrition for a 50-mile, 90-kilometer ultra marathon. Nuts, absolutely nuts. I love it. Cool. Question from John. Lindsey, let me just find this question. There we go. John says, oh, no, I've jumped one ahead. This one's from Sarah. Sarah says, I've been running for over 10 years and absolutely love it, but plantar fasciitis has been a recurring issue for me over the past few years. It flares up whenever I increase my mileage or start up training for a race, especially after long runs or speed sessions. I've tried resting, icing, using orthotics, but the pain always seems to come back after a while. How can I prevent these recurring injuries from keeping me running consistently? Are there specific exercises or stretches, maybe footwear adjustments that can help? I really want to stay injury-free and enjoy my running without consistently worrying about this setback. Super frustrating for Sarah, but plantar fasciitis, fairly common. Is there a simple fix? If you're over 50 and want to recover from sessions faster, run pain and injury-free, and improve your endurance, then be sure to join Lindsey and I for our upcoming Faster Beyond 50 Masterclass. In it, we'll show you how we helped a 70-year-old run a 47-minute, 18-second 10K and how you can take those exact same principles and apply them in your training. Simply scan the QR code that's on screen right now or click on the link in the description below to save your seat in the training now. We look forward to seeing you there.
There isn't a simple fix, but the mistake everyone makes is that they always focus on where it's sore. Okay, so most injuries aren't caused by the specific area. Okay, that specific area perhaps requires some strengthening, but it's normally a chain that needs fixing and that we break down at the weakest point. But if we don't fix the issue in the chain, the problem keeps coming back. So in the short term, to try and reduce the discomfort in that plantar fascia and to just help you return to play, you want to reduce that inflammation. The best way to do that is to throw a water bottle in the freezer and then just for 10 to 15 minutes, morning and evening, gently roll. So a lot of people think you need to like really massage that. That ice is hard. So that'll just bruise the plantar fascia. Just enough pressure so that you can feel that cold. Okay. And the cold should be making it a little bit uncomfortable, not the pressure. Okay. So that's a good thing to do short term to reduce the inflammation. Then to do some towel crunches or toe crunches where you put your feet flat on a tiled surface on a towel and you use your toes to just drag that underneath. That will strengthen the plantar fascia. But then you've got to get to work to fix what the actual issue is. It's helpful if you know what the issue is or go and see a physical therapist to help you figure out what that issue is. But we can just work on some general things on both sides, because sometimes it's not necessarily, so if you've got it in the right foot, then we often assume it's on the right hand side, but no, sometimes it's the left side that's weak and the right side has been overworked to compensate. Other times there is a weakness somewhere in that chain. So we take a shotgun approach and we work on both. Okay, probably the most common place where there's the problem is in the glutes, because we spend so much time sitting. and working at computers or sitting and working in a book or whatever the case may be, driving, lots of driving. So because we sit often, glutes are very weak, compromised, switched off, and hip flexors are super tight. So we want to work on mobility at opening our hips at the front, and we want to strengthen our glutes and activate them. So you want to do glute strengthening, strengthen your hamstrings and your quads. Often plantar has a strong correlation to having very tight calf muscles, in particular the soleus. So if you do a calf stretch with a bent knee, gentle calf stretch with a bent knee to try and improve the mobility, particularly around the ankle and the calf, will make a big difference. And then lots of stability work. So one-legged balancing stuff on a Bosu ball or on a stability pad or something similar. But we really want to work on that full kinetic chain from the lower back, on the front, in the hip flexors, all the way down. So that's your longer term strategy so that it doesn't keep coming back. Obviously, footwear does play a role, but it does sound to me like that is something that you have tried to address. You've been to a couple of experts to look at that, but they are treating the symptom. We need to make sure that we treat that whole chain and get you sorted out.
Yeah, absolutely. And part of what we do here at CoachParry.com, obviously we do strength training for runners specifically. You get access to live stream strength classes as well as the recordings. We've got some stuff that we do called foot core as well, which really does help, as Lindsey said, with those like toe scrunches and that sort of thing, toe lifts, all that. You can get access to that by clicking on the link that's in the description of this podcast as well. You can go and check that out. We'd love to have you on board and help you with that too. And then Lindsey, question from John, and I'm going to be super generous here because I love John's question. I'm going to throw in a Coach Parry cap for John. John, thanks for submitting your question. John lives in Seattle and he's 64. He says, running's been a big part of my life for decades. I've had to take a break recently due to a knee replacement surgery. And now that I've completed the rehab and I'm stronger, I'm eager to get back to running. However, I'm also cautious that I don't want to risk setbacks or damage my new knee. What's the best way to safely return to running after knee replacement in my 60s? Are there any specific steps, exercises, or training approaches I should follow to ease back into it without overdoing it? I think it's important to state here first, Lindsey, obviously it's important to check with your surgeon and any other medical practitioners that are involved here on a return to play too. And this isn't medical advice, so this doesn't cut across for everybody who's had knee replacements. We definitely don't want to say that. But in your experience, we've worked with a number of athletes who have had knee replacements and returned to running successfully. What advice have you got for John?
Yeah, so I'm going to, as I often do in these answers, I'm going to take a step back for someone who has been told they need a knee replacement, because I've been in that scenario many times with and worked with athletes that have had it, and my own mother has had a full knee replacement, and I've worked with her through that. And one thing that I can tell you, if you know you need to go for a knee replacement, so someone tells you you're going for a full knee replacement, then there's very little you can do that will compromise the outcome of that operation before you have it. They're already going to chop off the top of your tibia and the top of your femur. Okay, so those are going concerns. And so whatever other damage you do to the top of those things makes very little difference. You're welcome to discuss that with your orthopedic surgeon. I've got another older client who has to go in for a partial knee replacement, and I told her to ask the orthopedic surgeon that question, and he said, you go wild until the operation. Now, the reason I'm bringing that up is because the fitter you can go into that operation and the stronger you can go into that operation, the better you're going to come out of the operation, and the shorter your rehabilitation cycle is going to be on the other side. So we want to go in fit and strong. So if it's very painful to run, then we cycle. Okay, so obviously you let pain be your guide here, but strength train. Like push yourself hard on the strength training. Make sure that you go in there with really strong muscles in your legs before you have the knee replacement. Then when you come out of the knee replacement, the good surgeons will pair you up with a physiotherapist immediately. And it's just so important to do exactly what they tell you, because the physiotherapist's primary role in the first bit of rehabilitation is to regain as much mobility as you can in that knee. And that is such an important step in the cycle of rehabilitation. So that physiotherapist will help you do what they tell you, even if it hurts. Okay. So I watched this with my mom. I had to do some of that range of motion stuff myself, and it was very painful for my mom, but you've got to do the rehab that the physiotherapist gives you exactly how they tell you to do it, and they will tell you what level of discomfort is. Just don't go into that level of discomfort. Okay, so that's the immediate physiotherapy, getting your range of motion back. The next step is to start making sure we build up the strength in that knee again. And normally you can combine this process with starting to do some cycling. In fact, my mom also did some cycling in the previous step with zero resistance, because it, again, just helped with the range of motion. But once you get into the part where we can now start strengthening, you can normally start adding some resistance when you are cycling. And then, of course, once you've been doing the strength training, you will just start running like a beginner runner. So you'll start running, you'll start walking. That's, I guess, important. Start going out on 20 to 30-minute walks. Do that for a couple of weeks, and then you'll walk 4 minutes, run 1 minute, walk 4 minutes, run 1 minute. The next week, you'll walk 3 minutes, run 2 minutes. The next week, walk 2 minutes, run 3 minutes. So you take yourself a good 8 to 12 weeks to get to the point where you can run 5Ks again comfortably. And then typically somewhere between 6 and 9 months, you'll basically be running quite close to how you've always run. And if you just keep up the strength training, you stick to the right training principles, you shouldn't damage that knee.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that question. I love that, Lindsey. And would the same apply to hip replacements? I mean, we've had a couple of athletes sort of ask similar questions, but does the same principle apply?
Yeah, typically, especially if both articular surfaces are being replaced. So partials are sometimes a little bit more challenging, because if you're having a partial knee replacement, that means that only one surface is damaged. So you might only be having the bottom or only doing the top. And so if you go too crazy in that initial period, then that disfiguration of the bottom surface could actually start arthritis in the upper surface. So with the hip, that's the one thing, is that they often don't replace both articular surfaces. So you do need to be a little bit more careful. But from the strength training side, yes. I mean, the stronger you go in, the better.
Yeah, absolutely. Lindsey, as always, great to catch up. Thank you for those questions. John, I appreciate yours as well. We will send that cap through. We'll be in touch to get your details. And thank you for submitting it. If you have a question you'd like answered here on the Faster Beyond 50 podcast, all you need to do is click on the link that's in the description of this podcast, or whatever player you're listening on. If you're watching it on YouTube, it's in the description there as well. You can submit your question. We do filter the video questions to the top. So if you want to guarantee your question getting answered, make sure you leave us a video question. Give us as much detail as you can. Try and make it succinct. Let us know where you are, how old you are, how often you're training, and pop your question in there too. So until next time, from the two of us, we look forward to catching up again soon. Cheers.